All right, everybody, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into a topic that's got pet owners howling mad. Complaints against Banfield Pet Hospital.
Yeah, this isn't just a few bad Yelp reviews we're talking about.
Oh, absolutely not.
We've got a hefty stack of over 1,100 complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau, all within the last 3 years. And to add fuel to the fire, we're layering in a Forbes Advisor article that really shines a light on this whole situation.
And let's be real, when you see that many complaints, it's not just a few disgruntled pet parents. It's starting to look like a pattern.
Right, and the Better Business Bureau seems to agree with that assessment.
Because they slap Banfield with a big fat F rating.
And get this, that rating isn't even based on customer reviews, which, by the way, the BBB doesn't use. It's based solely on Banfield's track record of addressing those complaints.
So basically, they're getting penalized for not responding effectively.
Yikes. But before we jump to conclusions, let's dig into the nitty-gritty of these complaints. What are people actually upset about?
Well, the most common gripes fall into a few categories.
Hit us with it.
First up, we've got the classic service and repair issues.
Which, let's face it, are par for the course with any business, right? You're always going to have a few hiccups here and there.
Exactly. Then we've got the ever-present billing and sales issues. Those are always a headache. But here's where things take a turn for the truly hairy. Banfield's Optimum Wellness Plan seems to be a major source of frustration.
Okay, yeah, I've heard whispers about this wellness plan. What's the deal with that?
So it's marketed as a way to cover routine pet care, right?
Right,
But a lot of folks are mistaking it for actual pet insurance.
which it is not. Which, and this is crucial, it is not. Forbes does a great job of breaking down the differences, but that seems to be a huge point of confusion.
And I imagine the confusion is leading to some pretty heated complaints.
You got that right.
So what are we talking about here? What kind of situations are people finding themselves in with this wellness plan?
Well, imagine this. You have to make the heartbreaking decision to put your dog down.
Oh gosh, I can't even imagine.
And then, on top of that grief, you discover that you're still on the hook for this wellness plan for months.
Oh no.
Are you serious? We're talking about real people, real complaints about being stuck with these ongoing payments for a pet that's no longer with them. One person even wrote in saying they were specifically told by Banfield that the plan would end automatically. Guess what?
It did.
Didn't. At all. And sadly, this isn't just one isolated incident. We're seeing a pattern of customers thinking they're within the supposed grace period to cancel, often mentioned as 4 days only to get slapped with charges anyway.
That just seems cruel, especially when you're dealing with the loss of a pet.
It really does make you question their priorities.
You think they'd be a little more understanding. So it sounds like this wellness plan is a minefield of potential issues. What else are people saying?
Well, get this. Another complaint we keep seeing is from people who move away from their Banfield clinic. Like, one person moved 65 miles away.
Well, yeah, that makes the plan pretty useless.
Exactly. But even though it's completely impractical for them to use the plan anymore, they're still obligated to pay.
Oh, come on. That's just adding insult to injury. Yeah, that's just not right. It's one thing if you sign a contract and you can't get out of it.
Right.
But when your whole situation changes, like you move 65 miles away,
Exactly.
it just seems really unfair.
It does raise some red flags. And honestly, this isn't even the half of it. While that wellness plan, it's a big one.
Yeah.
There are some serious concerns about the actual quality of care happening at Banfield.
Really? Okay, so we're not just talking about frustrating contracts and billing nightmares.
No. We're talking about people complaining about misdiagnoses, unnecessary tests being run.
Oh, wow.
Even instances of animals being kept in really subpar condition.
That's awful. See, and this is what gets me. Because, like, billing issues, those are one thing.
Right.
But when you start talking about the actual care your pet is receiving, that's a whole other level of concern. And you know what really adds to this whole thing?
What's that?
The complaints about Banfield's customer service.
Oh, tell me about it.
Because if you look at those complaints, you see this pattern of rudeness from staff, people having trouble getting straight answers.
And being passed around from person to person on the phone.
Exactly. It's like they're stuck in customer service purgatory.
It's like pulling teeth trying to get a clear answer from them sometimes. And that lack of transparency, that difficulty communicating, it just makes everything worse.
It's true, and it really makes you wonder about the bigger picture here.
What do you mean?
Well, if they're this bad at communicating with their customers, if they're not addressing these concerns head on, what does that say about their overall approach to, like, patient care?
You're right. Are they potentially cutting corners?
Exactly.
Are they prioritizing profits over pets? These are questions pet owners really need to be asking.
Because no one wants to think that their vet might be putting money ahead of their furry friend's well-being.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, honestly.
It really is.
And you know what I find really interesting about all of this?
What's that?
Banfield isn't really responding to these BBB complaints, like, at all.
That is a little odd, isn't it? You'd think they'd want to clear their name, address these issues head on.
Right. But in the few instances where they do respond, it's almost comical.
Oh.
They just keep repeating that the wellness plan is not insurance.
Well, which technically it's not, but...
But that's not the point.
Exactly.
People feel misled, they feel taken advantage of, and Banfield's response is basically just, well, we told you so.
It feels very dismissive.
It's like they're more worried about protecting themselves legally than actually addressing the emotional impact their policies are having on people. It's like they're just hiding behind their contracts instead of actually taking responsibility. And that's the thing, right? When it comes to our pets, we're always going to be a little more, what's the word?
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable, yeah. We just want what's best for them, and sometimes we trust these companies maybe a little too easily.
And that's exactly why it's so important to go in with your guard up a little bit, you know?
Hmm.
Do your homework.
Exactly. Read the fine print, folks. And you really read it. Don't just skim.
Highlight things, take notes, look up words you don't understand.
Yes. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If something doesn't seem right or you need clarification, speak up. It's your right as a consumer and, more importantly, as your pet's advocate.
Absolutely. You're their voice, and sometimes you got to be a little loud to make sure they're heard.
Preach. And remember, you always have the power to walk away. If a company isn't treating you right, if their policies raise red flags, there are other options out there.
Plenty of other vets would be happy to have your business.
Exactly. Don't feel pressured into something that doesn't feel right. Okay, before we wrap this up, I do want to mention one thing.
Yeah.
As concerning as all these Banfield complaints are, they don't tell the whole story, right? I mean, Banfield's a huge company. They have tons of clients. We're just looking at a small percentage of people who had negative experiences.
That's true. It's important to keep things in perspective. But even with that in mind, the sheer volume and consistency of these complaints, especially about the wellness plan, I think it's definitely a wake-up call.
Totally. It highlights the importance of doing your research, asking tough questions, and really advocating for your furry, scaly, or feathered friends.
They depend on us, and we got to have their backs.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. How can you apply that same critical thinking, that same willingness to ask questions to other areas of your life? Where else might you need to do your due diligence, read the fine print, and really advocate for yourself? Something to think about. Until next time, everybody,